Tu Diem, hello. Tu Diem has a terminal illness. Will CEO Toan find a way to save the woman he loves? Do miracles exist? Toan is desperate to find a way to save Diem from the scythe of death. Life can be cruel, stealing smiles and replacing them with fear. Tu Diem, fragile yet radiant, now faces the merciless truth of a terminal illness. Every breath she takes feels like a countdown, every smile hiding the shadow of despair. But in her darkest hours, one man refuses to surrender: CEO Toan. Toan is not just fighting against fate, but against time itself. With trembling hands and a burning heart, he searches desperately for a miracle, praying that love might conquer even death. Will his devotion rewrite destiny? Or must he watch helplessly as the woman who saved his soul slips away? Love becomes the last battlefield where hope is both a weapon and a wound. Tu Diem had always carried a quiet strength in her eyes. She had endured storms of rejection, betrayal, and abandonment, yet her heart remained pure, always finding a reason to care for others, even when no one cared for her. But fate was cruel. One cold afternoon, the doctors whispered the words that shattered her fragile peace. It is a terminal illness. Toan, the man who owed her his very life, felt the ground collapse beneath his feet. He was a CEO, a man accustomed to solving problems, commanding empires, and finding solutions where others saw none. But here, before the fragile figure of Tu Diem lying pale on the hospital bed, he was nothing more than a man terrified, desperate, powerless. Each night, Toan sat beside her bed, holding her thin hand as if by sheer willpower he could keep her tied to this world. He searched endlessly, meeting doctors, calling international specialists, and pouring his wealth into research. He was ready to trade everything, even his own health, if only the universe would grant Diem another chance at life. But beyond the struggle of science and medicine, there was something deeper growing between them. In her weakest moments, Diem would smile faintly and whisper, "Even if my time is short, I am happy. Because I met you." Those words cut into Toan's soul more deeply than any wound ever could. He refused to believe her fate was sealed. Toan begged destiny for a miracle, clung to faith, and dared to challenge the very scythe of death. And as he fought against time, against despair, against his own fear, the question lingered in his heart: would love be strong enough to rewrite what destiny had already written? The days bled into weeks, and the hospital walls became both prison and sanctuary. Toan's determination never wavered. He traveled across borders, flew to medical conferences, and pleaded with experts who shook their heads with pity. Each no felt like another nail in the coffin of hope, yet he refused to stop. One evening, after a long journey, Toan returned to the hospital, with eyes heavy from exhaustion but heart blazing with a new spark. He had found a small experimental treatment, abroad risky, uncertain, but it was a chance. Holding Diem's hand, he whispered with trembling voice, "Diem, I found something. It might be dangerous, but if it means you'll live, will you trust me?" Her lips curved into a weak smile. "Toan, even if this body fails me, know that I already lived my miracle. The day you chose me." Tears burned his eyes. He couldn't let her go. The treatment began. Endless nights of pain and fear followed. Diem's body weakened further at first, trembling against the storm within her. Toan stayed at her side, whispering courage into her ears, feeding her spoon by spoon, wiping her tears when she thought he wasn't watching. Then, slowly, like the first rays of dawn breaking a long night, her body began to respond. The fever subsided. The doctors, astonished, murmured about an unpredictable recovery. For Toan, it was no medical explanation. It was love, faith, and the relentless will to fight for her. One morning, when the sunlight streamed softly through the hospital window, Diem sat up, her eyes brighter than they had been in months. Toan rushed to her side, afraid it was a dream. She touched his face with trembling fingers and whispered, "You never gave up on me. Maybe miracles do exist." Toan held her close, his voice breaking, "No, Diem, you are my miracle." And in that fragile yet powerful moment, They both realized the scythe of death had been pushed away, not by science alone, but by a love so fierce it dared to fight fate itself. Tu Diem's recovery was fragile at first. Every step she took was slow, every breath still laced with uncertainty. Toan, however, treated each day she survived as a treasure. He rearranged his entire life. Business meetings were shortened. Late nights in the office replaced by evenings spent reading to her, cooking simple meals, or just sitting quietly, listening to her heartbeat. For the first time in his life, the powerful CEO discovered what it meant to live not for achievements, but for love. He cherished her laughter, however faint. He memorized her expressions as if afraid they would fade into memory. But fate is never so easily defeated. One evening, after weeks of hope, Diem coughed violently, blood staining her lips. Panic seized Toan. He rushed her back to the hospital, his world shattering all over again. The doctors explained that while the treatment had slowed the illness, it had not erased it completely. Time was still against them. That night, Toan sat at her bedside, his head buried in her fragile hands. "I can't lose you, Diem. Tell me what else I must do. Tell me how to fight harder." She gazed at him, her eyes filled with love and calmness he could not understand. "Toan, you already saved me, not my body, maybe, but my soul. I was once lost, unwanted, cast aside. You gave me dignity, warmth, and a reason to smile. If my time ends tomorrow, I will still leave this world with joy, because I had you." His chest tightened. In that moment, Toan understood. Perhaps miracles did not always mean changing destiny. Sometimes, miracles meant creating moments of love so powerful they transcended death itself. From that night on, Toan stopped fearing the calendar. Instead, he filled each day with meaning. He took Diem to the seaside at sunrise, wrapped her in blankets as they watched the waves. He brought her to the countryside, where children ran barefoot and laughter echoed. He even paused his empire just to walk slowly with her under blooming trees, her hand always safely in his. Every day was a victory. Every smile was proof that love was stronger than despair. And as the world continued to doubt, Toan held on to his truth. Whether Diem lived months or years, their love had already rewritten fate. The seasons changed. Tu Diem's health wavered like a candle in the wind, yet her spirit burned brighter than ever. Toan stood beside her through every storm. He had built skyscrapers, managed empires, but nothing compared to the courage it took to hold her hand and smile, even when fear pressed against his heart. One winter morning, Diem awoke before him. She watched the man sleeping at her side, his face worn from sleepless nights. A quiet tear slipped down her cheek. "You gave me more than a lifetime in just these months," she whispered. That day, she asked him to take her to the sea once more. Wrapped in his coat, she leaned against him as the waves kissed the shore. "If my time comes, promise me you won't break," she said softly. "Promise me you'll live on, carrying my love inside you." Toan shook his head, tears blurring his vision. "Diem, don't speak of leaving. I will never let you go." But fate had its hour. One night, as the world outside was quiet, Diem's breaths grew shallow. She smiled faintly, her fingers tracing his face one last time. "Toan, you were my miracle." And with that, her eyes closed, peaceful as if she had simply drifted into sleep. Toan held her, his cries breaking the silence. He felt the cruel weight of loss crash upon him, yet within his grief, he also felt something else, a flame she had lit within him that would never die. In the days that followed, he returned to his empire, but he was no longer the same man. He built hospitals, funded research, and opened homes for the abandoned because Tu Diem had once been all of those things. Through his actions, she lived on. And when people asked him why he gave so much, Toan would smile with pain and tenderness. "Because once, someone taught me that love is the only miracle strong enough to fight death." The story of Tu Diem and Toan is more than a tale of love and loss. It is a reminder of what truly matters in the fragile span of human life. Wealth, power, and success may grant us influence in the world, but when death approaches, they offer no comfort. What endures is love, the quiet, selfless devotion that gives meaning even to suffering. Toan discovered that miracles do not always come as a cure or a second chance at life. Sometimes, the miracle is simply the courage to love without fear of losing, to give without expecting, and to cherish each day as though it were the last. Tu Diem's short existence became infinite in value because she was loved deeply. And in turn, she taught Toan to live with a heart wide open. The lesson is clear. We cannot control time, but we can control how we fill it. To love fiercely, to stand by someone when the world says it is hopeless, to turn pain into compassion for others. These are the miracles within our reach. In the end, death did not win, for though Tu Diem's body rested, her spirit lived on in every act of kindness Toan carried forward. Love outlasted loss, and that is life's most powerful miracle. True love is not measured by the length of days spent together, but by the depth of care given in those fleeting moments. Tu Diem's journey teaches us that even a fragile life can shine with extraordinary beauty when it is nurtured by compassion. Toan's devotion shows that love requires sacrifice, sleepless nights, endless searches, and the courage to stand against despair. Yet in that sacrifice, he discovered his truest self. He learned that the essence of life is not in how long we live, but in how much love we are willing to give. The greatest lesson of all is this: miracles are not always grand events that change the laws of nature. Sometimes, a miracle is simply holding a trembling hand, whispering words of comfort, or refusing to give up when the world has already surrendered. When love dares to fight death, it leaves behind a legacy stronger than time itself. And that legacy of kindness, of faith, of unconditional devotion, becomes the light that guides others long after we are gone.